Very good morning to you all. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching from. Welcome to ACFIM Talks, the second edition for 2022. On a sad note, though, before we start, let's observe a minute of silence. We, as a country, over the weekend, we lost our the governor of Bank of Uganda, the late Emmanuel Tumsime. So we are mourning a gallant gentleman who has contributed to the economy of this country, and I think it's important that we observe some minute of silence as we honor the late governor. And may his soul rest in peace. Okay, today with me, we have a very interesting discussion, and I have two gallant gentlemen, lady and gentleman I'll be introducing in a short while. But before we start, I'm encouraging and inviting everybody to be part of this discussion, to join us on all our social media platforms, on our Facebook, ACFIM, and also our YouTube channel, ACFIM Uganda, and our Twitter handle at ACFIM UG, so that you can be part of the conversation and also be able to contribute and participate. Once again, a very good morning, and you are most welcome. Your host, as usual, is Felix Kafuma, and we are discussing the accountability deficits in the management of political party finance in Uganda. And the choice of this topic was sparked off by a story in media where NUP, the National Unity Platform, top leadership was reported to have mismanaged funds meant for party activities. And the funds in question are the monthly contributions made by the NUP MPs. You'll understand that I think each MP is mandated to contribute about 500,000 towards the party activities per month. And this puts us into focus, and at the center of this crisis are issues around the deficits that are manifesting towards how political parties are transparent and accountable in utilizing resources. What is happening in the NUP corner is not so isolated and different from what's happening elsewhere in other political parties. We've had similar cases in the corner of NRM. At some point, FDC had challenges in that area. DP was in the media for the same, so was UPC. And this now makes this conversation not just a focus on NUP, but a focus on the political parties in Uganda and how transparent, how accountable they are in managing political party financing. With me in the studios to broaden this discussion, I have with me Henry Kasacca, who's on set. Henry Kasacca is the current Executive Director of Dialogue and Democracy Training Center, and he has been supporting democracy and governance work for over 20 years, or close to 20 years, and he has done a lot of work around the political economy analysis, gender mainstreaming, and deepening democratic processes, including training and equipping youth in participation and leadership. He's also the founding program manager of iPod, that platform that brings together political parties that are represented in parliament to discuss and deepen pluralism in the democratic dispensation of Uganda. You are most welcome, Henry Kasacca.
Thank you very much, Felix, and it's a pleasure being part of this platform, and thank you for inviting me.
Always a pleasure to have you and to share for you to share with us your insights. And now my other guest, who was on the set earlier before we went live, I don't know what happened, but probably she should be joining us, is someone that is no stranger in this space and to this subject, Honorable Proscovia Salaam Musumba, who many of you know very well. She's a political activist, a social policy analyst, and a social entrepreneur. She's also the Vice-Chairperson of one of the longest parties in Uganda, FDC, that's Forum for Democratic Change. He was also the MP for Bugabula County South in Kamuli District between 1996 and 2006. She also served as the chairperson of Kamuli District Local Government from 2012 to 2016 and recently contested and she lost. Well, I know she would say she didn't lose, but the officials asked she didn't go through. But Honorable, it's always a pleasure to have you and you're most welcome to be part of this discussion.
Yes, thank you, my brother. I'm the proudest person politically because I have every experience of winning, of losing, of everything.
And being rigged.
So yes.
Also the experience of being rigged.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Let me start with you, Honorable. In terms of setting the stage for this discussion, you'll appreciate that within public there is that perception, especially people are not very clear on where political parties are getting their money, how they spend it, who they report to. There is that uncertainty about how political parties function in terms of accessing resources and how they spend the money they get, and who do they report to? What are your thoughts in substantiating this?
I want our viewers and our listeners, first of all, to appreciate the political environment in which we operate, that is not structured, and therefore, in the jungle out there, the best man takes the day. The most eloquent speaker takes the day. The best schemer takes the day, because there are no rules. Actually, we operate on the end justifies the means. And therefore, we are seeking as a country to structure politics. And that's why I welcome this discussion, because it brings in insights from where we are coming from and where we ought to be going. In the 21st century, where should we be going politically? Because the whole of our lives is structured around politics. Our survival is structured around politics. And therefore, we must get the politics right for us to have a winning chance at all. And so, yes, you will not know, like I don't know. We are all learning on the job. I've never been a member of a political party before. This is my first political party, and therefore, I treat mine as a lesson to the rest who will come after us. We are not in the best of situations because even the legal framework is not good. It's not because politicians are schemers only, but it's because politicians also are ignorant. Many people who are running business, the political business in the country, are amateurs, are gamblers, are just go-lucky fellows, and they want to have their day. They are not preparing a country for a better future, for a competitive future, or for a future where we will be advanced politically. So where do we position ourselves globally, global positioning? How do we position ourselves in the region? Even in the country, we are doing so bad, so pathetically bad, that even the people who should be advising us, like yourselves, have no advice. So it's a sad situation we find ourselves in, but a situation which we must correct for us to have a winning chance.
Okay, thank you, Honorable, for actually highlighting what are those challenges political parties are contending with. And let me come to you, Kasacca, because Honorable has talked about a number of things, and she appreciates that this is a learning curve. You've been in this area for close to 20 years, trying to make a mark in the democratic dispensation of Uganda. I want to pick your thoughts, and picking from what Honorable has just shared in terms of the political landscape of Uganda that is supposed to nurture political parties as vehicles of democracy. What are those challenges, especially riding on what he has just said? But why do we have a situation where political parties struggle internally to be accountable, to be transparent? We don't know how they spend the money. We don't know where they get the money from. Why are we in that situation?
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank Honorable Salam for that introduction. And I entirely agree with her that the fundamental challenge that we face as a country is a structural problem. The fundamental problems we have are structural in nature. You have institutions that do not work like institutions. You're talking about how they use money, but how do they operate? You have people who have joined political parties, but they have no idea about the internal processes and functioning of a political party. Beyond elections, because many of the political parties have actually been very active around election times. Beyond elections, what takes place within these political parties? So these are the most fundamental problems. You're talking about a political party spending money, but how do they fundraise? And on what ground do they fundraise? What are they fundraising for, if at all they are fundraising? Political parties running event-based politics. If there is no event, there is no politics. If there is no election, there is no politics. If there is no by-election, there is no politics. If there is no debate coming up, there is no politics. So we have a situation where many political actors are running more of event-based politics. And this goes through across, not just at headquarters, but even right through the grassroots levels. Political parties are raising money, yes, but the money for what? MPs are contributing money, but what are they contributing? I mean, what was the formula? What was the rationale of agreeing to send 1 million or 500,000? Was it simply to say we need to create money at the headquarters? So these are the issues that fundamentally shape what we see happening. In terms of the structural problems, you also have to look at the programming within these political parties. What is the day-to-day activity in a political party? And if they have resources, what are those political activities that they spend money on? Many people who are not in headquarters will think that if there is no election, people at headquarters enjoying the benefits of the money that comes in. So the mentality that people attach material benefits to any office is also eating them up. I mean, you could find people complaining that you are misusing money simply because they think that because you are getting 20 million per month and you are at the headquarters, you are eating this money. So all those factors provide the framework under which we are discussing political party accountability. So the lack of clear internal processes, the lack of fundamental programming activities of building these political parties, because essentially the money that goes to a political party, and the challenge we have is that parties have been fundraising more at an election time. There's fundraising for an election and there's fundraising for political party work, day-to-day political party work. The officials of the political parties will need resources to enable them try to do political work. So at the moment, without a clear idea on how activities are being implemented to build the political party, the priorities are not well aligned. I'm confident that whoever is at the party headquarters and they're doing political work, because political work is quite wide. Meaning attending a burial to make a speech for a political party is an activity. So when you see people moving around, you may think they're enjoying the benefits, but they're actually putting in a lot. So the fact that we have not oriented people to understand what it means to build a political party, some will have complaints thinking that those who are at headquarters are enjoying all the money we are sending to headquarters. And that may be hijacked and overblown out of proportion, and may also cause unnecessary political confusion. But it could also be that the lack of structured political programming, the lack of agreed priorities on how to build political parties. When you put money in a basket and people have access to it, they can abuse that money. They can have priorities that are not geared towards strengthening the political party. Now, the other fundamental problem that also comes with the structure is that when people talk about political accountability or financial accountability, you think they are going for you. The culture that people are not accountable has eaten this country to the bone. And it's not just within political parties. Whoever has access to resources, when they have power, they can make decisions that are not in the interest of the organization. So these are the broader challenges that we are currently facing. But fundamentally, the problem is a structural problem. The parties do not have processes, do not have systems, and do not have working methods. Secondly, the parties are very weak in terms of political programming. What activities are they programming to build their political parties? Thirdly, the framework lacks the adequate support. We are all judging political parties based on our definitions of what a political party is. But political parties are institutions that have to grow through practice. Now, if majority of Ugandans have not seen a political party work, we should not conclude that parties cannot do these things because they have not had the opportunity to understand how a political party works. I mean, somebody is at the secretariat of a political party, but they have only been at the secretariat of a campaign team. They don't know how the party correspondences are dealt with, how party positions are had. I mean, there is no internal programs that make members get involved in the affairs of the political party beyond elections. So these are all factors that affect the accountability issues that we see. Now, if political parties, and you see the idea that MPs or whoever is elected contributes, comes from the material benefit conceptualization. That if you elect Henry Kasacca to be a member of parliament, representing Luero or Katikamu South or whatever, Henry Kasacca is going to get an allowance in parliament and a salary, and he's getting it because he has our party flag. So let him also bring some kind of imposer. Fundraising for political parties should not be restricted to only the elected leaders. It should be a program that cuts across. So all this shows you that those who think that you have been elected, you have resources, so give. So when you give the money, sometimes you may give thinking it's going to build a political party. But because you do not have agreed priorities, you think what others are doing is that they're eating your money. And this money has no framework. When you get money in a political party or in an organization, and people fund, and they don't tell you this money is for this. When you wake up one day, it can be used for condolence fee. The next day, it can be used for fueling your car. The other day, all around your office. The other day, for entertaining people. So the lack of political programming has made fundraise on an event-based kind of arrangements. When they have an activity, we have a meeting in Kamuri, we need some resources, call Musumba, call Kasacca, call so and so, have some money and put up an activity. But that activity is basically an event. But if it's a long-term political kind of programmed activity, it will also have guidelines. So whatever money political parties receive will have guidelines. We need to pay secretariat staff. We need to have functioning costs. We need to have such activities. So that will provide the framework under which resources are being used. But in a situation where you do not have clear policies, clear frameworks, that money can be abused. And the problem is that if you raise a lot of money, then the chances of abusing this money are very high. So fundamentally, it is a structural problem. And the issue is that the parties are young. They are yet to develop policies, programs, and procedures on how to manage these resources. I would say that as an introduction to this question.
Wow. Thank you so much. And you raised a number of things that are tickling me that I'm going through to Honorable. And because Honorable belongs to one of the biggest opposition political parties, granted it's still a young party given how compared to other political parties, but the issues you raise, and I want to ask Honorable here, because I need to understand why is it difficult for political parties to put in place, especially to address some of the structural problems Henry presents, to put in place, to have a political programming embedded in the way they run or operate, put in place frameworks, put in place policies. What are the challenges around building political parties as institutions and more or less have them built around individuals? Because we've seen, and this is also historical, UPC was as strong as its leader then, Obote. We've seen the NRM more or less built around the leader, the charismatic character of General Yoweri Museveni. The same thing with when you look at how FDC is structured, strong, built around the leader. The same thing was with BP then, and also now, I think also the same thing with the youngest party for now, which is MOP. Again, built around the leader, not necessarily entirely building systems, building structures, having programs. What is the challenge?
You do a lot of generalization, unfortunately. And I wish you guys would stop being desktop analysts and get into the real hands-on analysis and profiling of where each party is. The very party you're talking about, the biggest, the one in leadership, is the one without anything that is exemplary to the rest of us. They pick their money from the state. They pick their money from the taxpayer. They use their positions to access resources. And you make a mistake of comparing it with parties that have been stopped legally in the law to get money from anywhere else except its membership and also Sunday collections, the paltry pence. It is not a fair assessment of where we are at as a country or where the challenges are. From the FDC perspective, I want to tell you that we are building a political infrastructure. We are using everything at our disposal. We run systems. They are not perfect, but they're there. We run policies which are there. They may not be perfect, but they're there. How can I be in an organization without that? Not me. And not the colleagues I work with. Because we come with a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise from elsewhere that we bring into party building. We are building a party culture, which is the hardest. It's harder than even funding and fundraising. To take people from the street and organize them, and organize their brains, organize their legs. Oh my God. There are guys who think it's because of the individual merit system we are in, and because of the way NRM works, that every party is supposed to work that way. Nobody should ask another for accountability, and therefore they will gang against anybody who wants to put sanity in a place. But that is also short-lived. As long as we can, and we are making effort to doing so, I don't feel threatened for as long as I'm a party actor in the right place at the right time, because I know all these are teething problems. There is no political party that will work normally in an abnormal situation. I mean, if we have been stopped from organizing, what are you asking for? That you bleed a stone? Parties have been formed to compete for power, and they do everything and anything that takes them there. What is required of us is to have the law in place that charts out the path of accessing power. How do you get there? I'm sure when you get on a football field, you know the do's and don'ts. You know you must be 11, isn't it? You must have a referee. You must have linesmen. It is 90 minutes. The red card, even the spectators will tell you that, no, that is offside. In politics, who tells you that? I don't want you guys to sit out there and talk about a country that you don't live in called Uganda, which you just comment about. Go get into FDC and ask guys what is happening here. I will tell you that we have a strategic plan, and that is our guiding tool. We have had 3 so far. We are going to launch another one when I return. It is because I'm out of the country. That's why it hasn't been launched. Because I'm part of the people setting it up. Now, we do have procedures. The procedures don't work well all the time. Why? Because we don't have a steady income. And that steady income is because we cannot get money from places that are willing to give us. We have asked our leaders to make a contribution because they must lead. You don't lead just by sitting around. You lead by putting resources in the kitty. And money is such thing. For me, I bring knowledge. If they were to pay me for my knowledge, they can't afford me. They simply can't afford me. And so, parties are doing whatever it takes to stay alive. And that's, I'll tell you, we are working so hard to stay alive. And part of it is being able to find the human resource, the financial resource, the logistical resource, and the capacity resource. All these resources have been compromised because of the way that the politics is happening in our country. But yes, if you have a checklist like you do of how parties should work, of how any organization should work, go and tick it off. Where do we get our resources from? How do we use those resources? Who do we pay? How big is our secretariat? How are our positions done? How do we prepare for elections? How do we prepare for community mobilization? All these, I think, Kasacca, my brother, you need to develop a checklist, a standard checklist that you're able to use so that you stay above board, you remain professional. As soon as I give away my position as the vice chairman, I will be into heavy duty training of parties across the country, because a good party, Museveni and NRM have not prepared any party ideologue. They have eroded the ones that DP created, the ones that UPC created, the cadreship. They have no cadre of their own. Would I be right to say that their biggest cadre is the Prime Minister? Because Rukagana Rugunda was made by UPC. Mutevide was made by UPC. We have deeper questions to ask about financing, about administration, about organization that are bigger than what we are discussing. We are on the national platform, and I want us to use this national platform. I'll tell you something. The best place I've been trained is by Frederick Ebert Foundation. Frederick Ebert Foundation. And I wish these NGOs, I wish these political groupings would do more than just seminars and train the next generation of leaders. We are short of the next generation of leaders who know anything. I'm so embarrassed by what happened in Parliament yesterday. That you can pass a stupid thing. Mutevide must be turning in his grave. That he doesn't have a house. Is it tenable? Is it possible? And when you look at the discussion on the platforms, looks like nobody has any brain to work it out and say this is not possible. Some members of parliament wanted to use his death to profit. Some people in parliament wanted to use his name and the burial for them to earn political mileage. It is totally crazy. That intellectual class is dead. I think we need time to talk about the death of an intellectual class. You see, once we don't get the politics right, we will not get the economy right, we will not get the health right, we will not get anything right. Let's invest more time and money into getting our politics right. Thank you, guys.
Fair enough, Honorable. Thank you. Henry, Honorable shares, and I think it's passionately from the practice perspective, some of the things he believes some political parties are getting right, but they constrained within the operating environment. And I'm going to throw this back at you. Because I've looked at some of the systems for some political parties, like I've looked at the one of DP. On paper, they present things, they present policies, they present programs, but usually the challenge comes in the practice. And I want to weigh in here, bring you in and weigh in on this matter. For example, why is it very difficult for political parties to be accountable? Just a simple thing of publishing their income and expenditures on their websites and probably other public outlets becomes a challenge. Why is it that they can have these things in place, but adherence and practice becomes a problem?
Well, it's actually a cultural thing. It's not in our current DNA. It's not Ugandan to account. It's not Ugandan to take criticism. When people criticize you, you think they are against you. It's not Ugandan for people to take feedback. I mean, all these political parties have these documents. I can tell you, you visit any of them, you'll find all these documents. You'll find position papers, you'll find a manifesto, you'll find anything. And you'll get out and talk to the members and you find they have no idea what is in the manifesto. They have no idea what is in their strategic plan. They have no idea what their policy processes provide for. And this is not just in political parties. It's also even in parliament. Yesterday, the whole debate in parliament about Mtewile showed you that even MPs don't know how government operates. You wake up one day and you say, we need to pass a resolution to give out this. I mean, there are standard procedures on which government can dispose of its own properties. Even being old cars, when you find cars at the ministry parked there, the PS cannot wake up one day and say, but you guys, let's just give out these cars. So there must be processes which people know. Now, the fact that people do not know these processes makes them unfunctioning. And talking about their being unfunctioning is not against anybody. It is actually about the status quo. I mean, when you listen to what Honorable Musumba has described as the current state, you are getting people off the streets. We expect you to take them through a process. And when the processes you have are not working, it does not mean you don't have them. But the fact that they are on the shelves and the people implementing them do not implement them means they are not working. So the issue is that it is building on a process. And I think that the fundamental challenge is that and you see, many people in these political parties, not to build them, but to run for political office. And many know it. Somebody will come and become whatever position they have. Not that they know what it means to be that position, but it is the next available election on the table. And this is not their problem. This is part of the structural problem, and this is part of the mess that has been brought by the individual merit thinking. Even today within the political parties, there are people with individual merit thinking, and Honorable Musumba has pointed out that that is the big problem. And if that remains a big problem, it means that whatever their good ideas have cannot be run by these people. So those will be the internal challenges people have to face. And it is the duty of the political parties to begin and blocking these internal challenges. That if people are still thinking of an individual merit, if that is the biggest thinking now, You cannot change that unless you have a deliberate plan internally to break it out, not to begin saying, lamenting about it. Yes, we all know this is the problem. But the issue is, what are the parties doing? Many people within these political parties are very good and they know what to do to build an organization, but they are frustrated. Don't think these party leaders do not know what to do. But you can't build a political party alone. You can't build a political party alone. You must have a team. Now, if the entire team is not aware of what has to be done, even a company, be it Coca-Cola, be it whatever company you have, when the top leadership has a mindset that is not shared by the rank and the file of the organization, the company will not make profits. Be it a bank, if the strategic direction of an organization is not appreciated and known by the entire membership, and all their efforts are aligned towards that particular strategic goal, then you shall not have any movement in a political party, in an NGO, in a business, in a microfinance, in any organization. So the problems we have currently is not to press blame, but to appreciate the challenges under which our organizations are growing. And I'm using the word growing because building democracy is a long-term process. It's not about 10 years. FDC has been around for just 10, 15 years. But that time is so short to judge them as an organization. So what is important is that the idea of building a political organization, and this is the challenge we are facing. When we are trying to build, I have worked with political parties for 20 years, not just here in Uganda. Before Uganda went into multi-party politics, I was working with the Frederick Ebert. I have done a lot of work with CCM. I have actually organized various visits of political party leaders to go and visit CCM to see how a political party works. I have been with Chadema. I have been to the Kenyan political parties to benchmark, because we all don't know how parties are working. But with a party like CCM, you can be sure that yes, some activity goes on. And we have had the opportunities to expose some people. Challenge is the Musumbas are very few within these organizations. The Mugisha Muntus who have ideas of building a political party are very few. Even their good ideas may not go very far because their entire team has people who think about getting a position, people who think about running for the next election. So we have this, it is a structural problem. And being a structural problem, we are not placing blame on anybody. The other issue is that you get close to the political parties, you find they have all these documents. You ask yourself why, unless you understand the culture within which people are joining these political parties, you will not be able to make sense. You will think that they have all this, but they're not doing it. They have all this, but there are some other internal limitations which are to do with the software of building an organization. The software of building a political party starts with the leadership, with the membership. If people are very disrespectful of their leaders, if people use all their own available platforms to undermine their leaders, that culture of indiscipline cannot operate. You can't build a political organization within a culture of indiscipline. So you start with the basics. Let us first build a culture of discipline. Let us so these are things that will not take place within 1 month, within 2 years, within 5 years. But there must be efforts of building towards this kind of direction. So I want to tell you that yes, it is wrong to judge political parties the way we are judging them at the moment. But it is also right and proper that we talk about these issues. The idea of sweeping challenges under the carpet, that culture is also within our political class here. People want to sweep even the problems they have control over under the carpet and place the blame elsewhere. You cannot fix something unless you approach it, unless you address it head on. I think that is where we are.
Wow. We are still having a very interesting discussion here, looking at the accountability deficits in the management of political party finance, but broadly looking at the political parties, their internal mechanisms in terms of why they fall short in being transparent and accountable to be the ideal alternative governments that are in waiting. And with me, I have Henry Kasacca, who is the current Executive Director of Dialogue and Democracy Training Center. I also have with me Proscovia Salaam Musumba, Honorable, who is a political activist and the current Vice-Chairperson for FDC, one of the biggest opposition political parties in Uganda. And you can still be part of this conversation on our social media platforms, on our Twitter handle, ACFIM, and also Facebook, including our YouTube channel, ACFIM Uganda, and you can send in your questions, your comments, and we spice up this conversation. As I wait for Honorable to get back on stage, I seem to have lost Honorable, but I can still run with Henry as Honorable gets. Honorable is back. Great, Honorable. There's a question here I want you to. I appreciate the fact that there are efforts done internally within political parties, and we are trying to see how we now rise above these challenges that political parties are facing. But you briefly talked about it, and I want us to really now appreciate from as a practitioner, why is it so difficult? Yes, you talked about the context of Uganda, but why is it so difficult, even within the current difficult context, for political parties to diversify their sources of income and for example, have membership that can contribute? I used to see UPC then in those days having a membership contributing towards the party. Even when government is, or the current context is constraining mobilization of resources, but why is it difficult that even internally to do resource mobilization internally within political parties to run their affairs? What are those challenges that are very unique to resource mobilization for political parties to broaden their envelope?
You know, the economy is the first operating environment in which we find difficulty. But also the culture. There are people who actually think that we are in politics because we have nothing else to do. And that's why many of us are leaving politics. Because we have many things to do. The consistency that is required to build a party culture requires time and investment. And I believe that if you are looking for a case study, you have FDC at your disposal. Mobilizing resources, we are not talking, a party is not run by 100 million shillings. A party is not run by 500 million shillings. A party is run in billions of shillings. Billions of shillings. And if the billions of shillings of the ones you need to run a party, you only have 1% of those requirements. Of course, you operate at 1% capacity. The rest is goodwill, the rest is voluntary. And that's the operating environment in which we are in. Until we cure the operating environment. When I was a child, when I was growing up in the times of Idi Amin, in the times of Obote, I made a solemn commitment to myself that when I grow up, I will contribute to a better society politically. And that better society politically is what we are building, and that's what Kasacca is talking about. I think we need to present our political challenge, our collective political challenge, from a perspective of what are the missing ingredients into a healthy multi-party political dispensation. What are the missing ingredients? What are the right ingredients? Because if you are given salt and flour and half an egg and told to make a cake, a wedding cake, I mean, there's no sugar. That can't be a cake. You must be making something else. So I want us to be kind to ourselves. I want us to be professional. I want us, now that the lockdown is gone, I want us to do the heavy duty thinking and planning and strategizing and directing of the political process in the country. Let's get off the airwaves and let's get boots on, and let's move the country forward. Whatever you're talking about, we're in the same country. Internally in FDC, I will tell you that I see a growing allergy for knowledge, that people don't want knowledge. I don't know what's happening in other parties, but there's an allergy that is growing, that people want piga twende, people don't want to be asked questions, and people don't want to answer questions. What is the plan? What do we do? Who should be on the team? You see? All are internal processes that we are doing. That is why we go through turbulences, which you call turbulences. Oh, there are people quarreling. But no, there's no dead body that quarrels. It's only living things that discuss. So whenever you see a political party that is quiet, know that it's dead. It's dead internally. It has failing body organs. So the action is really to put our energy into making parties better. In my party, I am proposing that leaders should have internships too, to renew their knowledge, to renew their commitments. They need placements too, because you only lead from a vantage point of knowledge. So they must update their knowledge too. People think that knowledge is static, but knowledge is perishable. Knowledge is a perishable good. If you don't renew, you age with what you know. So knowledge, in the knowledge world we are in, we need, first of all, the first thing we must attack, the first thing we must improve is the software, the knowledge software, so that we have an operating system of people who know. You know, people who don't know are not steady. They panic, and their panic affects the lower groups. So mine is really to look for a way of how we maintain our leadership knowledgeable and active, and that will take us a bit of renewal within the party, and that's what we are doing. So I will be glad to continue our debate from that perspective, and I'm always happy to be part of the platform.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable. Thank you so much, Honorable. Henry, there's the question here I want you to, as someone who has been in this sector for some time, as an outsider, especially when concerning the perception in the public, and don't blame the public for thinking this way, that political parties, and I think it also a bit borders on the foundational errors, how political parties emerge and start, that within public, there's that narrative that political parties are personal enterprises, more or less used as vehicles for self-enrichment. Some individuals use them for personal political ambitions, not necessarily to contribute to advancing multi-party democracy. And you've been in this sector for long. From where you sit, how true or wrong is this perception within public?
Well, you see, the first thing I want to say is that political parties do not emerge from Mars, or they do not fall from anywhere. These party leaders we see have not been imported. They have come up through our cultural systems. They have come up through our political processes. They are part of the people Honorable Salaam is talking about, lack knowledge, lack understanding, and they are driven. Some of them are driven by material things. So the perception within the public is based on two things. One is the expectation from a political party. And they have these expectations that we expect this political party to do this. Secondly, is that if the party does not do that and they see the individual members' personal material driving forces pushing these people, then you are likely to have the kind of situation you have. If you have party leaders who do not want knowledge, who will move from one party to the other just to get a nomination form signed, who will be shifting because I have not been. People join political parties to get the party flag for election, not to build the objectives of the organization. There are some of those. And it also helps you that if you are looking at this nature, is that the people of Uganda can still support their own organizations if they have the conviction. The UPC pillars were able to support UPC at that time because they had conviction in what the party was doing and where it was going. Dr. Besigye was able to collect money during the his last election because people believed he was running their struggle. Bobi Wine has got money. The Katikkiro of Uganda, Charles Peter Mayiga, through a tofali, has been able to get the conviction within the people that it is your responsibility to do the minimum. So when people are activated and tuned and charged to that kind of conviction level, they can be able to run these organizations. So the frustration the public has, one is based on the assumption that when you register a legal political party, it's going to work like a political party. Secondly, it's also based on the lack of knowledge on what is happening within these political parties. And three, it is based on the lack of commitment to work on the long-term software that we need to build a political party. Issues of cultural orientation do not take 5 years. And this is also another problem. Even the current donors supporting political parties, they come with 5-year programs. You support it, after 3 years, nothing has happened, you abandon and shift the program. There must be commitment to a long-term cultural process that we are trying to shape an orientation of the culture. So the frustration is understandable, but we can explain it, and it is our duty to provide the information that what you expect is the formal kind of expectation. But the challenges demand that for you to, I mean, you cannot cook, you cannot fry your beans if you don't have them. If you're hungry, you must have the food first, and then the process continues. These organizations is going to be a systematic and consistent process. You do not have to have mobilizers taking up leadership positions and you expect them to provide leadership. And this is not unique to political parties. It is actually in the country now, where you find that the mobilizers have become so popular and they are now taking up leadership positions. They cannot make the initiatives leaders must make, but they are not humble enough to disqualify themselves because of the material benefits that come from elective offices. So we are running 2 or 3 processes concurrently. You want to build an organization, you want to secure, you want to have elective positions, you are driven by the election. So all these processes require patience, number one. I want to tell those people who are frustrated. I mean, I have been supporting political party work, but this is not where I started. I started my career as an activist. I was a youth activist, and I have roots within the politics. So I know that one of the challenges we have within the political parties is the lack of capacity among people supporting the processes to help the processes grow. Many people think you support a political party by giving it money, but you must align the leaders. You must enable the leaders appreciate that alignment is critical. And we don't have these facilities here. We don't have this support here. The support we have is to comment on political parties and criticize them. And the idea and this has been one of the challenges political parties have had, is that there has been a thinking that the civil society can replace political parties. There has been a thinking that improving governance in this country will emerge from the civil society. And we have had more tendency to support civil society-led processes than political party-led processes. Why? Because we think the parties are having problems. The critical issue would be help the parties overcome their problems, then they can play the political roles. Now, when the political environment begins shrinking, when civil society has no space, it is only the political parties that will have space, regardless of the restrictive political environment that they are complaining about. But even the restrictive political environment, yes, it is restrictive, but there is some space where people can begin doing efforts of opening up this. The challenge is that even the limited space is not utilized sometimes. These parties, yes, we agree that the environment is restrictive, but the big question is, regardless of the restrictions, have the parties used the available little space to make inroads into expanding the space? Space will not come by simply talking about space. Space is restricted, place is restricted. No, it will not happen that way. There must be some efforts of changing, of shaping the opinion about the space, and these efforts must be seen and they must be visible. So the frustrations with political parties in the public is well understood, but it is not entirely informed by the realities. I'm sure that whoever is frustrated with political parties, when they understand how much challenges parties are facing, they will actually work more to support these political parties to ensure that their expectations are not based on uninformed assumptions.
Okay, thank you so much. Fair enough. I have only 5 minutes left, so just for one question, which has to be wrapped up, which is specifically speaking to public funding, the architecture of public funding, and whether whether the framework is good enough to promote accountability and the transparent use of public funds. I don't know whether Honorable is there, because FDC has been a beneficiary of public funding, and I've loved him in a minute or two to kind of like share some insights. But if she's not there, let me, I think, edit it with you, Henry, the issue on public funding. Why, first of all, comment on the current framework concerning how public funds are dispersed and are used and accounted for, and why are there challenges in enforcing? Probably, Honorable, just in a minute or two, that question, if you can attempt to answer it, and then Henry can wrap it up, because we have less than 5 minutes to get out of here.
My brother, the public funding is a trap.
Okay.
We are actually escorting NRM into the central bank to breaking into the public funding. It is a situation which was forced on us, having failed elsewhere to look for money. It's a situation we are prepared to live with. We know it's not durable, and it does not grow an institution, but we have no option. It's a zero-sum option. Our experience is that it creates just tension. It creates the wrong expectation, and it creates doubt within the leadership. It's one thing I really don't like at all, because then it leaves you very open for manipulation.
Okay.
That's why you see there are endless quarrels about money. Beyond money, what else are parties quarreling about? Are they quarreling about policy? Are they quarreling about strategy? It's all not right. It's just a veiled threat that is going to take this country backwards. And in many of the meetings I attend of IPOD, I see people being tempted to say, oh, let's ask for more money, let's ask for more money. But more money invites more problems. So we will have to find a way around on how to, because funding is key to the existence of a party or any organization or even a family. And therefore we'll have to find ways and means of going around it. Since it's in our ambit now, let's discuss it. What do you think? What do we do? Because it's a live problem that we are dealing with. What do we do? If I can't get money from donors who believe in my ideas, should I break the bank? Should I steal it? Because money is what I want. So how do I get it? Should I mortgage the country? Do deals with external bodies so that they can give me the impetus I want? Because then you are taking a country into making deals with the Chinese to mortgage a country. I'll say, look, you Chinese support us. You can have 12 wells. The danger is not just to the party. The danger is for a nation, and it's for generations. So let's fix this.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Very, very interesting insights there. Talking about it's the bigger problem beyond political parties. Henry, in a minute or two, can you wrap it up, the issue of public funding?
I would say that in principle, public funding is very good. I would personally support it because that's the only way you can protect the country's sovereignty. If people do not come and fund you for their own agendas, then you can make compromises even before you take government. It's important that governments, the Ugandans, fund their own political institutions. Funding political parties is not basically funding the headquarters, but the people of Uganda who subscribe to that organization. It is creating tension. Yes, those are some of the challenges. Why is it creating tension? Because people have got too much money and they have no program, and all they are quarreling about is this money, this money, this money. If people are fighting over 60 million and then you give them 4 billion, then you are having a big problem. The framework that we are having, the current formula of using parliamentary strengths, I think should be revised in this country if we were to have a more equity within to have equity in building political parties. At the moment, even if you increase the public funding to 100 billion, the NRM will take the lion's share. But even if the NRM takes 100 billion, you do not see that there is a correlation between the amount of money they are getting to build a political party and the efforts of building the NRM as a political party. So you find that even if the NRM gets 50 billion this year and 50 billion next year, that money may be used to sustain mobilizers, but not to build the organization. And same applies to all the other opposition parties. So I think that we may need to revise the framework. Enforcing it is difficult. And we have been pushing, some of us, that we need to separate and create a special office of the register of political parties to ensure that the Electoral Commission, who is an umpire and a referee in a free and fair competition, does not have the burden of following up on political parties who are going to accuse you of bias when you talk about accountability. The EC currently is finding it extremely difficult to demand for accountability because they will accuse you of bias. And you can't have that if you can separate the two offices. So I would think that one, we should support it. Two, we need to discuss the framework and the formula that we are using to ensure that there is equity. Looking at Uganda's history, the framework, the formula must be informed by our history. And the framework must, if we take this, we shall be able to bring in equity. We need to separate the Electoral Commission. We may need to think of conditions, I'm afraid to say, that will guide this money. Why is it that this money is just bringing conflicts within the political parties? Maybe the people in the parties are not about building political parties and all about eating, and it may have very negative effects. So it's a complex thing, but we need to debate it in a more elaborate kind of framework.
All right, thank you so much. That was Henry Kasacca, who is the current Executive Director of Dialogue and Democracy Training Center. I also had with me Honorable Proscovia Salaam Musumba, who is a political analyst and activist, and also a founder member of FDC, the Vice-Chairperson of FDC. We've been discussing accountability deficits in the management of political party finance in Uganda, and it's been a very interesting discussion. We can continue with this conversation within our platforms, social media platforms, and keep the comments coming. I, your host, was Felix Kafuma, moderating. Until next week, bye-bye, stay safe, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much.